The New Yorker has a cover story on Donald Trump. I have not seen the New Yorker story, so I don't know if the New Yorker is for Trump or not. I can't tell, because this is actually a Mother Jones story, a leftist publication, a bunch of wackos themselves. And they're talking about the cover of the New Yorker magazine, which has got George Washington on it, Abraham Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt, and FDR. And the point that Mother Jones is making is what is distasteful about Trump is not that he offends old-fashioned American values. Trump is distasteful. This is to the leftists at Mother Jones. Trump is distasteful because he taps into certain old-fashioned American values like nativism, brash, tough talk, slow-burning authoritarianism, and family dynasties that have played a very consequential role throughout American history. And Trump embodies all of it. Now, it's interesting, the guys on the cover, Teddy Roosevelt considered by many to be one of our great presidents, Mr. Snerdley. My grandfather loved Teddy Roosevelt. My grandfather loved, and he was a down-the-middle Republican like nobody else ever was. He loved Teddy Roosevelt. He loved Teddy. I mean, I interviewed him on his 100th birthday in Kansas City. It was an American Bar Association meeting. Went on and on and on. He thought Teddy Roosevelt, greatest president ever because of the innovation that Roosevelt brought to the country, among them the Navy. But he did. There was a thing about Teddy Roosevelt was a get-it-done kind of guy. Today, it would be called slow burner or slow-burning authoritarianism. And, of course, Roosevelt's family dynasty and so forth. But Teddy Roosevelt was big pro-America. I mean, going down there, building the Panama Canal, nativism, so forth. Expanding federal lands, creating national parks, and so forth. Many people looking back on Teddy Roosevelt think of him as the first big government president, but people back then loved him because he was pro-America, unabashed, America first, always. And so we have this New Yorker cover here. And again, I don't know what the New Yorker story is, because the story here about the New Yorker cover is from Mother Jones. And it's Mother Jones analyzing Trump, not the New Yorker. So it's just the cover picture that I have here. I don't have any idea what the New Yorker says. Give you a flavor of this, as written by Mother Jones. My gosh, where to start? Teddy Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, George Washington, John Kennedy, Abraham Lincoln. Those are the guys on the cover, actually. Looking on in disbelief at the mess Trump is making of the presidential election. Teddy Roosevelt backed a racist imperial war and said white women using birth control were committing race suicide by turning their country over to less fair-skinned people. I don't know that Roosevelt ever said this. Mother Jones quoting him on this. FDR, the architect of Japanese internment. JFK, other than his personal life, makes Trump look like Ned Flanders. Started a land war in Asia we're still recovering from. And George Washington owned people and bought an election by getting people drunk. So this is who Mother Jones is comparing Trump to. These interpretations of some of the greatest Americans who've ever lived. Now, I don't know how many Trump supporters are going to run into the New Yorker or Mother Jones, but if they do, it's just going to reaffirm their support for Trump to have him insulted this way, because this is not how people see Trump. You know, one of the ways people see Trump and Ted Cruz, and even to a lesser extent Marco Rubio, one of the identifying characteristics of the American electorate, and I think this would probably be true even of some on the Democrat side, is fear. What is that? Oh, it must be the printer behind me, stupid fax machine. There is genuine fear in this country. But the question is, fear of what? For some people, the fear is they're out of work and they can't find a job, so the fear is economic. But even people who have jobs, even people who have careers, they're afraid. What are they afraid of? They're afraid they're going to lose their jobs. They're afraid they're going to lose their 401ks. They are afraid they're going to lose everything because they look at trends in the country and they see everything going in the wrong direction. The Democrats are afraid, some of the Democrat base is afraid that the Republicans are going to win and roll back gay marriage and roll back Obamacare and roll back all this liberal socialism that they think they've got. It still hasn't made them happy. But there's another fear that isn't much spoken of, that I think these other fears are legitimate, but there's a fear greater, maybe even be the umbrella under which all these other fears fall. And that fear, and it's big, is of the government. And this fear of government runs pretty much throughout the Republican base. It's a legitimate fear. It's embodied by every time Obama and the Democrats start bellyaching about guns. You know, that's constitutional. That's the Second Amendment. They know that if Obama's serious, he's going to do something that violates the Constitution and that the Constitution won't stop him. It's a fear. Others are fearful of the unstoppable growth of the federal government and what that means. Others are afraid of the endless regulation coming out of Washington that's not backed up by legislation that is nothing but punitive. People do not feel joined with their government, and they certainly don't feel that there is a unified sense of purpose from citizen to government. The fear is government versus citizen. The Republican Party has no way of relating to that. They poo-poo it. They make fun of people afraid of government. To them, that strain of the Republican base or conservatism, those are the real kooks. What do you mean afraid of government? You tinfoil head conspiracy theorists? That's what they think. But the fear of government's real. The fear of government's justified. You look at the IRS and the Tea Party groups, which were denied tax-exempt funding. Obviously political. There are a lot of people with a legitimate fear of government. If you have a job and are afraid of losing your job, what's the real fear? The government's going to mess things up, or they're going to purposely do it, or something's going to happen, but somebody not responsible is in charge of the economy and is making a mess of it. The umbrella fear is fear of government. Well, who out there happens to be talking about the incompetence and incapability of the government louder than anybody else is? That would be the Donald and Cruz as well. But with the Donald, it's an identifying characteristic. He never even utters the words. A caller moments, I never hear Trump talk about big government. He does all the time. He just doesn't use the words. He talks about liberals all the time. Doesn't use the word. He talks about conservatives all doesn't use the word. Exactly the advice Pat Buchanan was given back in 1996. Go ahead, do everything. Do not call yourself a conservative, Pat. It'll narrow your identity. You don't need any help from Pat couldn't do it. He was so tied to the conservative movement in the party, he couldn't do it. But Trump can, since he's never really been associated with either political party. It's an open question. But everything Trump talks about, much of what he talks about, is rooted in opposition in one way or another to things happening in government, to people from government. And that is, if the media would go out and start interviewing people about this and delving into why do you support Cruz, or why do you support Trump, or what, if they kept digging And the media won't, because they don't understand it either. All these people, the government is loved by the Democrats. The media loves government. My God, that's where they all make their money. It's where they all make their living. The idea of government getting smaller, unacceptable, not possible, will not happen. Same thing with the Republican establishment. Their jobs depend upon a big, thriving, active government. But one of the primary tenets of conservatism, small government, out-of-the-way government, it's as much a part of this campaign as if somebody were mentioning the words each and every day. The difference is the words are not being mentioned, but the message is getting through.